Welcome back to another week of not really sure on how to feel with Chainsaw Man. Once again, every single week with each release of Chainsaw Man's chapter brings forth a whole new range of conflicting and contrasting emotions that just makes for the most polarizing experience. In all honesty, I thought this fight was somewhat coming to a conclusion. And even though I've been saying these exact same words for the past, what seemingly is 2 months now, the fact that it has continued and even elevated itself once again with a whole different direction that I don't think any of us were actually even expecting just goes to show how enthralling this reading experience is every chapter. It's something that you won't necessarily find elsewhere, or at least it will be extremely difficult to find elsewhere to such a scale, to such degree. The way the author is handling his story, his narrative, his characters, the differing emotions and mentalities that are coming across is so incredibly detailed and masterfully crafted. You can see why Chainsaw Man is getting the response that it's getting, which is a lot of it. The hope and anticipation for an anime announcement or adaptation or something relating to it to any sort of degree is something that people are frothing at the mouths for. They're hungry for a Chainsaw Man anime. And I can't blame them. I am also one of those persons. I would love to see Chainsaw Man get an anime, and especially a well done one. Something that a lot of series potentially within Chainsaw Man's spectrum or its sphere wouldn't actually get the chance to do because of how gritty or over the top or chaotic it truly is. Obviously, the series itself does not hold back in depicting these rather sporadic things. How that would be conceived and conceptualized within an anime is just as difficult, but making it work, making it function, and bringing across beautiful animation, beautiful scenery, beautiful dialogue is what everyone hopes for. Do we always get it? Not necessarily, but we can dream and we can wait. And hopefully the response and the success and the appreciation for this series that it's currently getting with the sales of its manga volumes shows enough of an importance to treat this series with respect in terms of an anime adaptation. We do not want another Tokyo Ghoul mishap. And as much as people may have enjoyed Tokyo Ghoul, that anime is not what the manga deserved. Whether you enjoyed that anime or not is entirely up to you. But such an incredible manga deserved a lot better. Also, if you end up enjoying this video, consider subscribing. I greatly appreciate it. When it comes to this week's chapter, there's a lot of great things that come through. First and foremost, Power coming back into the story is obviously pretty shocking. I don't feel any of us were really expecting something along those lines to happen, but when it comes back in so nonchalantly, so relaxingly, so easily and effortlessly, it makes you wonder what else is cooking up within the brain of the author. I absolutely loved the dialogue between Pochita and Power, and how simplistic but also subtly emotional it truly was. Seeing Power back within the story and her quirky personality coming across is engaging. It's such a lovable personality for the most part. I know a lot of people may not like her character, but just the amount of high octane energy that she brings, such a chaotic mindset and nature for her character, is such an incredible thing to read. It also makes her extremely unpredictable, and you see that firsthand once again within this chapter, especially if the situation is so dire like this one. It does not distort or distract or take away from her own chaotic decisions. Instead, it probably fuels it and empowers it even further. It was nice to see her appreciation towards Denji and Pochita reaching out towards her and saying that if you eat my flesh, you can reincarnate as a devil and you'll be able to save Denji, which obviously she wholeheartedly obliged by, claiming that Denji and her are partners. That sentiment is backed by the growing relationship that they had for quite some time. And when you compare the beginning of the story of Power and Denji compared to where they were just recently and what they've been through, what they've experienced and how they've grown together, it's a rather emotional thing. Very subtle, like I said, but extremely well done. And she does not hold back. Once she is reincarnated, mind you, out of the mouth of Chainsaw Man, she's in this massive devil form, something that we've never seen from her before. And I'm curious if this devil form is what she truly is, how she truly looks like. I'd assume so, just based on the fact that she is reincarnated from death for the most part, and the only reason she is reincarnated is because of the blood that Denji drank from Power a long time ago. It's crazy to think that that someone that was completely obliterated by Makima a handful of months ago and was subsequently controlled by her even, has now been resurrected thanks to a fraction of blood that Denji drank to heal himself. That's an extremely overpowered ability that she has, being a blood devil. It also makes me curious on how they will continue to explore the notations and differences between a fiend and Denji, which is a different sort of hybrid. We've seen a couple of hybrids, which is what Chainsaw Man or Denji fought in the previous chapters, who are very similar to him, but Power is somewhat of the opposite. She is considered a fiend and just a devil within a human body, whereas Denji is still human and still has his human personality, but Pochita is the devil infused with him. Exploring these origins using Power as some sort of a parallel is a great opportunity to expand things and allow people to understand information a lot further, which is a great thing to have. So seeing her come out into her devil form, using all of her abilities while still keeping that precious and over the top and chaotic personality that she has is vibrant. It's enthralling, it draws you into these moments, and it's extremely difficult to take the severity of the situation into account when she's out here laughing and throwing all of these swords and weapons and all of this destruction and devastation towards Makima and the people surrounding her with such ease, having her laughing and sprouting these one-liners that she is the strongest, that she is the best, and keeping that intact was a very impressive move to make. I wasn't sure if her reincarnated devil form would be a lot less personality driven and more so just baseless and power driven, but I'm glad to see it's the prior one, which makes for Power and Makima's confrontation, even though it's short and sweet, but still a rather engaging one. Seeing the abilities of Power for the first time and what she's potentially capable of, mixing it with the flip-floppy mindset that she has, it actually gets on Makima's nerves. One of the best things about Chainsaw Man is the extremely subtle facial expressions. Makima being one of the most stoic and precise, controlled individual that she is, never really changing her facial expressions, but when she does, it's usually in a rather impactful and powerful moment. It's very rare that we see it, so seeing her somewhat slightly annoyed to the slightest degrees is thanks to that continuation of paying attention and so much high detailed to these facial expressions throughout the story. It's very easy to glance over as it's one specific panel, but she genuinely seems annoyed by Power, as Power for the most part is an annoying character and she's an anomaly. This is somewhat of a trigger point though for Makima, and everything just changes from there. She obliterates Power and does not give her the chance to do anything with Denji or Chainsaw Man, as you see Power start to go through the motions of her flip-floppy personality. She's sprouting over the top nonsense and trying to do all of these things to aggravate Makima. Not in an intellectual type of way, but more so just how Power builds herself and hypes herself up, which is incredible to witness. But it also works. But when it has a negative effect on Power, she tries to escape, which also doesn't work, because at this point Makima is somewhat taking it seriously a little bit further than potentially what she was before. Thus leads to the moment of Power once again flipping her personality and saying that she was a traitor this whole time. She was doing all of this to get Chainsaw Man to Makima. Obviously that wasn't the case, but that's how she functions, that's how she works. She's a very massive curveball within the story, and every moment that she is in within the story, you never know what to expect from her, and this is one of the prime moments and examples that I can give you. This chapter in itself, from start to finish of her introduction, her wanting to save Denji, her caring for him, her being very selfish and personal and showboating even, to then turning around and handing Chainsaw Man to Makima, giving in and becoming a traitor, quote unquote, which is by Pochita. This result isn't somewhat of her own fruition. It is a mix of that, but also the overwhelming pressure that Makima upholds, also offering her an opportunity to keep her alive as a pet, which she sees as an option, as a not too bad one, in comparison to death or being manipulated and controlled where you don't know who you are, or just being like a mindless, numb zombie. Being a pet sounds a lot more appealing, and you can't necessarily blame Power for that. But obviously this puts Denji and Chainsaw Man and Pochita in a very weird situation, as Pochita himself obviously recognizes and even seems exhausted from the whole situation that he was expecting something like this. For the most part, that is the entirety of the whole chapter. It's very easy, very simplistic, but one that puts a lot of emphasis on power and how completely abstract she truly is. And how when we play on her, when we see her within these chapters, it could literally go in any single direction. I wouldn't be surprised if next week's chapter is just as polarizing of an experience, because we don't know what to expect from her. I would assume, thanks to all of this and thanks to the ending of this chapter, unless Power has something up her sleeve, which also wouldn't be surprising because she likes to get into these weird mindsets where she doesn't actually be flip-floppy, which is definitely more of a rare situation, but one that is well and truly a possibility. But I would assume this fight or confrontation is somewhat coming to a conclusion. Now that Power is back within the story, we can do a lot of different things with her in terms of elongating the story further into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Do remember that we're also leading into chapter 100, which usually for manga is a rather climatic event. The chapter 100 mark is a very big milestone, and a lot of series love to go above and beyond to show off for it. Whether or not Chainsaw Man does it or not, that I'm not entirely sure, but I am more than excited to see what the author does for it and how he will lead things potentially to it if he is planning on doing it. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the 4 horsemen of apocalypse rocks up and we get to see that for the first time. Or on the complete other hand, we could just bring all this to a conclusion and somewhat reel back into a normal lifestyle, which I'm very curious and interested on how the author is going to reel back in everything that he's somewhat created at the moment. Does Denji lose his memories? Is Power going to be the exact same person after she comes out of this devil form? Is Denji going to be the same person that he once was? How does this all intertwine to go back to a lifestyle where Makima can still build up Denji to potentially control the Chainsaw Man? At this point, only time can tell. With that being said, if you have read the chapter, let me know how you felt about it. How'd you feel about Power returning, or the confrontation that she had with Makima and her mindset in general? I'd really love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.